Hey Clashes, the top 5 strategies did change with the last update because we had new content getting added to the game, like a new spell, the Ice Block for example. But I think we should get started with the number 6 strategy to make sure that I can explain to you how the ranking actually works. Because I'm going to use a power score to rank out of those strategies. The number on the left side is the difficulty number, which means the higher it is, the easier the strategy. The number on the right side is how strong the strategy actually is, and the higher the number, the stronger the strategy. As well, to make sure that the strength is always the more important number, this number is multiplied by 2 to, in the end, get the final power score. So the number 6 strategy is having a power score of 20 because Super Hog Riders did not really benefit that much from the last update. On the number 5 position, we have the Super Witches, especially with the new spell, incredibly strong. But I'm not just sharing with you the strategies themselves, but as well an equipment priority guide, which means all of the equipment in which order they're important to the strategy. As well, all of those equipment should be upgraded to the minimum level to make them usable, and then just make sure that you're skipping from equipment to equipment. The video for the minimum level is just linked right above me. But let's get started with the Super Witches and explain quickly how that works. For Super Witches, you're starting things off with the Fireball to set up the pathing for the Super Witches. This is in the end doing two things, getting value, but as I just mentioned, the most important thing is the pathing for the Super Witches. With that, you're really pushing the Super Witches in one specific area into the base to control them and eventually even freeze them up to make sure that they can tank even more damage. But now you might wonder, why is this spell just so good, especially with ground? Well, the really good interaction here is that you can freeze them up while you're missing intentionally your healers, and those healers with the Rage Aura of that Warden can heal up your troops while they're taking up to 94% less damage. This is the really strong interaction which can replace, for a lot of those strategies, the Eternal Tome. And that is super crucial, especially for Super Witches who never had the chance really of using the Eternal Tome because they're relying on the Fireball to set up this power push in the beginning. As well though, you're really flexible with this new spell. You can use it as what I'm doing right now in front of the town hall where there's a lot of damage on your flying troops, but especially it has great synergy with the equipment of the Archer Queen, the action figure. Because you can freeze up the giant and let the queen alone or with her clones deal a ton of damage. It's just a great synergy which I can highly recommend to anyone. But as well for the core, if you feel like overwhelmed, especially versus highly stacked bases or for example especially Rage Tower bases, you can just freeze up your troops and make sure that you're taking the damage. On top of that, this spell is incredibly good versus Invis Towers, which means you can just run into the Invisibility Tower, freeze up your troops, wait for the Invisibility Tower to run out, and then your troops are just going to continue. It is a powerhouse all along, and if you want to give it a try, it is going to be linked down below as all of the strategies which I will mention in this video. But you can tell already, it is for sure deserving a top 5 spot in my opinion. And I think we should continue with the next strategy, which means we're talking about the number 4 strategy right now in the entire game. And funny enough, it is going to be a power score tie all the way up to the number 2 position, which means number 4, 3, and 2 have the same power score. The tiebreaker here is going to be the strength score of the strategy, which the dragons, in my opinion, have the lowest. They have the big benefit of being super easy and straightforward to use, and as well you can see it, they're not really relying on many epic equipments. I've even removed the Dark Crown from the Minion Prince, because after plenty more of testing, I have to say, even on level 27, I felt like it did not outperform the Henchman Puppet. So I would just not put any ores into it whatsoever personally. The Henchman Puppet is overall more consistent and has as well the safety tool of making sure that you can spawn the henchmen, and it's just way better. But how do you play this strategy? First off, you're using your Royal Champion in the beginning to try to take down as much value as possible. You're especially going for areas which are really annoying for your dragons. This is why I'm going for this left side, which had the multi-throwing tower with the Rage Tower setup, and as well, which had the multi-arch towers and the air defenses close by, which are all defenses which can be quite frustrating to take down for your dragons, for example. But Now, you might see as well, we're using the new spell in this army composition on top. We have replaced one invisibility to make sure that we're even more flexible. But what does this flexibility now actually mean for the attack? Well, there's two key use cases for this strategy, or for this spell more, to be more specific. The first one is for your Royal Champion charge. If you're running into a bait, or if you just want to make sure that you're able to run into the Giga Bomb with the Royal Champion charge, you can utilize the new spell to tank the damage for your Fox and your Royal Champion, so they are staying safe, even running into a heavy damage area when it comes down to traps. The other option, again, is the interaction with the Giant from the Archer Queen. And that is the only reason why I switched away from the healers to the action figure in the strategy. If you don't use the new spell, you can as well use just the healer puppet if you want to. Completely fine. The next key thing though for this is to use the healing tome, because it's just way more powerful than the rage gem, and then use the siege barracks with the Archer Queen on the opposite side than the dragons. With that, you will never run into time issues. You have two armies pretty much, who are working towards each other and are preventing the time fails. Wherever power is needed, use the remaining spells and you're good to go versus any base out there. And at the same time, it is somewhat easy to execute because the Royal Champion charge isn't the hardest thing to do in the entire world, especially if you have put a little bit of time into it, and it's for sure worth it. The number 3 position is the Super Yeti, and interestingly enough, you can play it in two different ways. The first one is the original way with the Eternal Tome. You can still sneak in maybe like a new spell, but I think if you want to use the new spell, the best way is to just get rid of the Eternal Tome completely and just utilize the Rage Gem, because as I said earlier, the interaction between freezing up your own troops and letting the Rage Gem do the work with the healers is really the magic part about this. And that makes this really so strong. You can as well use 2 ice block spells and only like 0 freezes. I'm sorry. So like 2 ice block spells and 0 freezes. But it's really personal preference. I like to bring 1 freeze and only 1 of the ice blocks. But again, go for whatever works best for you. But the concept is completely the same. It doesn't matter if you're using the Eternal Tome or this approach with the new spell. The overall attack is exactly the same. You're playing the Royal Champion charge exactly like the dragons, and you're trying to create pathing for your Super Yetis. The nice thing about this is that they're attacking anything. The downside is that they're attacking anything as well, because this means you need to really funnel them in, use wall breakers properly to push them into the right directions, and really get them on the right path. But if you're able to do that, like for example I'm doing in this attack with pushing them into the core with the jump and then relying later on the King Earthquake ability to get us towards the core, towards the town hall for example, it is just insanely powerful. And whenever there is too much damage, just freeze your own troops. You will able to catch up with their hit points again, because the rage gem, raged up healers are going to keep everything safe. And you're good to go for collecting yet another 3-star. It is just really a powerful tool, and as I said earlier, the tiebreaker was won for it because it's a stronger strategy in strength, but overall more difficult strategy compared to the dragon approach. That is really the big difference between the dragons and the Super Yetis. Ground attacks right now are just benefiting so much from the new spell that it feels a little bit more unfair. Yes, you could argue that there is specific new defense to counter ground armies right now with the new mortar, the seasonal defense, but in the end, it's a new defense. Yes, it's towards countering ground, but it's not having that big of an impact if you're completely honest. It's not that big of a deal with having so many powerful tools now in your pocket. The number 2 position, and that might be surprising, is the Warden charge, and that is actually insane because it has the highest strength score out of all strategies. There's only 1 power score difference to the number 1 strategy though, but the strength, this right now in my opinion, is the strongest strategy in the entire game if you do not consider the difficulty. The reason is just that this new spell, the new Rocket Loon level, everything is catering towards this strategy. It feels like that those new features were pretty much made for this new strategy. The only exception is the hook tower. That thing is painful. If you want to charge on the side of the hook tower, you have to fireball it. There is no way around it. You have to take it out quickly. The fireball is the only way. The other option is just do the Warden charge on the other side. I mean, that's the other tool. I mean, otherwise there's no way around it. But at the same time, that's completely fine. The Fireball in this strategy is mostly for just saving you time and not like for, I don't know, taking down everything in the entire base, which is obviously helping. But again, just make the Fireball, kind of push your Warden to the right direction, take down the Hook Tower if needed. That's it, you're good to go. The reason why this strategy is just so good is because Rocket Loons are so flexible in supporting this Warden charge. The Fire Mites from the Furnace are just supporting it really nicely, and overall there's many different ways how you can play this strategy. Some top pushers are utilizing the Druid already before the new level, by the way, so that's another tool which you can utilize in this strategy to have an even stronger hero dive on the later stages with your King and Queen. I personally just prefer the Furnaces because it makes the Warden charge just so much safer and so much stronger in general. But as I said, you can use the Druids as well with this army, no problem whatsoever, which, as I said earlier, they have a new level as well. On this one, I'm luring my Warden away from the Fire Spitter with adding a couple of Rocket Loons, so the Warden is following the Rocket Loons, and this means he's getting out of danger. At this stage, all I have to do is go in with the heroes. And this is now as well where the tricky part is starting, why this strategy is so difficult to use. You have to Warden charge at the same time as you're starting with the hero dive now. It's a lot of multitasking. On top of that, you have a lot of different choices with this strategy. You can go with your King and Queen close to your Warden, no problem. Time might be an issue, but power-wise it's typically always fine. Another thing is that you can use, as I said, heroes with or without the Warden, but as well where you're just starting with it. So like so many different things you can consider. As well, a question which I've received a lot is, why am I using the Minion Prince over the Royal Champion? I just think the synergy between Rocket Loons and the Minion Prince is just mind-blowing, and it's just outperforming the Royal Champion by a long shot. Especially if you just compare their equipments. Do you prefer having a Rocket Spear and the shield over having, the Metal Pants, which means you're tanking for your Rocket Loons forever? And on top of that, you have one of the strongest equipments in the entire game with the Dark Orb. Both on the same hero, I would always go with that hero. On top of that, we typically always see ground skeletons, always ground expos, and as well the merged cannon is one of the strongest defenses out there. So for me, the Minion Prince is by far outperforming the Royal Champion in that strategy. But it's as well outperforming another hero in the number one strategy, and that is still going to be the number one strategy with the Royal Champion charge and the Root Riders. And on this one, the Minion Prince is outperforming the King. Again, it is different in hard mode. This is why you see different army compositions from the pros. But as well for this strategy, it's the same as for the Super Yeti approach, where you can go with two different routes. And both army links are linked down below. You can go with the Eternal Tome option, or you can go with the Rage Gem and the new spell option. Again, I will show you how you play it with a new spell, even though the approach overall is exactly the same. The main difference here is between the Eternal Tome and the new spell, that I think the new spell is more flexible, because you can kind of use it wherever and in more different ways, which I will show you over the attack itself. But on top of that, it is way more, harder to use, because with the Eternal Tome, you use it, you forget it, and your troops are staying safe. With this spell, you need to make sure that you're hitting the perfect amount of Root Riders, that you have them tanked, you're not hitting your healers so they can keep healing, and you just make sure that the timing and the placement is perfect. Otherwise, this spell is not really getting the value. So this is really the big difference between the Eternal Tome and the new spell. If you're understanding how to utilize the new spell, I think it has a lot of potential, but if you're not really good with that, then make sure that you're sticking with the Eternal Tome. Both are viable options. What I like about this, you can block the Giga Bomb. Obviously, you can do that with the Eternal Tome as well. But what you can't, for example, right now the funneling on the left side still needs some time, because the Queen has to take down the Scatter to push everything into the core. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just freezing up the Root Riders, so they're staying there in place, waiting for the Queen to funnel, to then continue with her walk and opening the entire base, because at this stage, the Queen has done her job and funneled everything. And on top of that, they were tanking for the remaining troops. So you can see already, you can use this spell in many different ways, and it's quite flexible to be used. and it's just really, really efficient. It's as well good to save your Warden, for example, if it's in like a lot of damage, especially if you want to keep the Rage Aura alive. And the nice thing with the spell, auras are going to keep working, which means Electro Aura of the Royal Champion, the Rage Gem of the Warden, and so on, are going to continue to work when you freeze your own troop, which is making it a really strong tool in the right hands. So I have seen now already comments of people saying this new spell is one of the worst spells, this spell is going to be one of the most broken spells, which, depending on the player is using it, both statements are somewhat correct, surprisingly. So I think overall, if you're good at the game, make sure that you're using the new spell, give it a try at least, or otherwise, just stick with the Eternal Tome, which is completely going to do a great job for you as well. Otherwise, let me know if I've missed any strategies, or if you disagree or agree with me with the overall strategy ranking, and let me know what type of strategies you would like to be covered in the next videos, because I will try to upload more specific guides for the new spell, because I feel like that's right now a really, really big tool for attackers to overpower a lot of defenses. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching the video. I will see you guys back tomorrow with the next one. Until then, see ya, and bye-bye.